So you have your raw fleece that you've sheared off of your sheep, and you've skirted it during the shearing process. The next phase is to start picking the vegetable matter out of the fleece in preparation for washing it. I'll show you some examples of how I lay out and remove all the vegetable matter from my fleeces. Skirting a fleece means that you're removing the undesirable parts from the fleece. Now, some of the skirting is done when we're shearing the animal, and the parts that we commonly remove are the legs, the wool from the legs, the belly, and the rear end of the animal. They're often soaked in urine or manure, or the fibers are just too short to be used. So that is often done while we're shearing. However, we're also kind of in a hurry when we're shearing the animal because they're up on our stand. We don't really want to dilly-dally too much. We want to move that along. So now we get to the skirting. We're going to be more meticulous in removing all the little pieces of vegetable matter. And you'll hear it abbreviated VM, which stands for vegetable matter. In other words, we're removing all the little pieces of hay, chaff, etc. in the fiber. This way it's prepared for the next stage, which is washing the fiber. So right now I've pulled out a section of fleece from a Shetland ewe named Curiosity, and I've laid it out on the skirting table. If I flip this over, this side of the fleece is where it was close to the skin of the animal, and so it's been cut on that side. You want the cut side facing down on your skirting table, and the tips of the fiber will be facing upward. I like to skirt my fleeces in smaller sections. There really is no need, unless you're going to sell it, to keep it in one giant piece. I can't process my fleece in one giant piece, so I'm going to break it up into smaller sections for processing. So in this example here, I'm going to sever it right here. And I know it's kind of cringy to tear it, but we're going to go ahead and separate it here. So this can be a piece that I work right here. And for now, for the moment being, I'll leave this one the size that it is. So looking closely at the fiber here, these are the pieces of hay and vegetable matter that we want to pick out with our hands. The purpose of the skirting table is that some of the vegetable matter can fall through the screen. So if you have a lot of small vegetable matter in there, you can give the fiber a shake like this, and some of it will fall through. This piece here is actually pretty clean, so I won't need to do it, but usually on the top of the neck is where you'll have a lot of the VM, and you'll need to do more shaking with that area. So you're literally going to go around and pick out all these pieces of vegetable matter. You can often tell which part of the body the fleece is from. The torso is going to be your nicest fleece with the longest staple length. Usually the thigh area has a different look to it than the torso. It's a little more distinct. And oftentimes the belly is not usable, although sometimes that's not the case. Occasionally I will have some nice fiber coming off of the belly. So far this year I had one of my Shetland lambs, yearling I should say, named Pepper, and I did use his belly wool. It was a little bit longer staple length than you would typically see, and it was pretty clean. It didn't have a lot of tags. So his was an example that I actually am using his belly fiber, but usually that's not the case. Breeds that have wool on their legs is not usable. And obviously wool from the rear end, it's heavily soiled in manure or urine, you can discard. It's up to you if you want to wear gloves while you're doing this. I mean, obviously it is very dirty as you're dealing with manure, etc. I just make sure I wash my hands good after I do this. The lanolin is actually really good for your skin, and lanolin is used in cosmetics. So you can see how nice this is looking already. You may run across cockleburrs. Is another thing that you need to pick out. Just be careful, they're sharp. They usually cut your skin a little bit. Also, you can run across tags, and they're usually a black, gummy looking substance that you would need to tear off and throw away. Let's look at some examples of tags and the anatomical areas of the fleece. So I can tell that this area of the fleece is from the butt of the sheep. Now, not all wool from the rear end needs to be discarded. Obviously, right under the tail that's full of, manure, yes, we throw that away. But with Harmony's fleece here, there's still very nice usable wool from that area. So this is an example of what that would look like. Now, yes, it may be soaked in some urine, but this will wash out. Now here's an example of a tag where it's kind of black and tarry like that. So that I'm going to tear off and discard. We won't be using that. Again, we're looking at another section from Harmony's fleece, and Harmony is one of my Shetland ewes. I could tell since she was a lamb that she was going to have a really nice fleece and take after her mom. So this is one of my favorites. So as we're looking at this section here, I can tell that this is from the torso. And as you work your way down, you can kind of envision the tail would be in this area. And right here we're getting to the back thigh and butt area, because you can see a little bit of dry manure here and some urine. So the real taggy manure like this here, obviously I will break that off and discard it. But again, there's quite a bit here in this area that actually can be washed out and kept. So you can picture what this would look like on the animal, and it's kind of helpful to know what areas you're working on. So I just finished with this section of Curiosity's fleece. It looks great and it is ready for washing. So what I do with the finished section is I can roll it up and place it. And what I do is I have a container here that I place all of the good fiber in that's ready to be washed. You can see how pretty that looks. These are all the ones that have been skirted through. So we have placed that into the container, and we're ready for the next section here. You can get quite a bit of fleece off of a single animal, which is really remarkable, honestly. All right, so we're going to take another section out of the bag. So this was literally bagged up on the shearing day that I did this animal. And now that I have more time to be more meticulous with this, we can do a better job. So we're going to put the cut side down and see what we have to work with here. So right away, I'm going to need to section this into smaller pieces again so that it's more manageable for me to work with. Because I do all of my own processing, we need to do smaller pieces. Okay, so I'm going to make the tear right here. So this will be one section here. Let's just spread this out and see what we have. Just a little bit windy. We're going to put this back in the bag here. Okay, and I'm going to make another tear right here. We'll bag this back up. And now I can spread this out more. Okay, so this is a little bit more manageable to work with at this point. I basically have 2 sections here ready to go. One thing I like about some of my sheep is they do have a lot of nice crimp on them. Curiosity does have some crimp, although a lot of the offspring that we bred have much more crimp. So again, this is a pretty nice section that clearly was off of the torso of the animal. There's really no second or third cuts. Pretty decent staple length here, as you can see that up close. So we will continue here picking out all of the vegetable matter as we did the first round. While I'm skirting some fleeces, I have some additional tips. Be aware that it's impossible to remove all of the vegetable matter, especially when it's on the top of the neck. Try giving it a good shake. Do the best that you can. If it's still too much, just throw it away. It's really not worth spending hours of time on a small segment. Split your fleece into smaller segments to work with it. Don't skirt on a windy day. Second cuts don't necessarily need to be removed. When carding, the liquor-in drum will collect them, and it can be used for other purposes besides spinning. I don't like to waste anything. However, the third cuts I will toss, as they tend to fall apart when I'm skirting them. And my biggest tip is that your fibers need to be teased open adequately prior to washing. What do I mean by that? You need to tease it open enough so that it's not in mats or clumps. On the other hand, it doesn't need to be a cloud either. For example, when you're carding your fleece with a drum carder, you want it to be a cloud where it's very thin and you can see through it. So kind of a happy medium there. What happens if you don't tease it open enough? Well, basically it will felt. Especially if you're using a spin dryer, but even without one, it can still felt. Then, after it dries, it will be very difficult and time-consuming to tease it open. It's not impossible to do it, but it is more time-consuming, and honestly, it's already a time-consuming process. Also, the length of the fiber can tear. I really recommend building a skirting table so that the debris can fall through the screen. You want to make it a comfortable height, as you will be standing for hours at a time doing this. As we get older, ergonomics are very important. This is a great time, in my opinion, to listen to educational podcasts, sermons, music, whatever you enjoy to unwind. Next, let's look at 2 fleeces with lots of vegetable matter. This fleece is a Suffolk. It's from a Suffolk ewe named Bocephus. Now her fleece is absolutely covered in vegetable matter this year because she is fed with a hay feeder that's raised. So that means that the vegetable matter will fall on the top of their neck and make that area kind of unusable. So what I did is I tore off this section right here, and I will not be cleaning this. This is just way too full. It would be miserable to try to clean this out. So I'm going to take that and throw that in the trash. Now the rest of this particular section here I am going to clean out. It does have a pretty nice staple length, and I worked with her fleece in the past and I really liked spinning it. So I'm going to start picking this one clean. So I just finished doing the first part of Harmony's fleece, and I believe this was probably a lot of the neck wool because it was nearly impossible to get clean. There will be a lot of vegetable matter on the top of the neck. So you can see what this looks like, how there's still quite a bit in it, but that's really the best that I could do. So we'll see how that comes when it's washed and carded. If it's not suitable for spinning, I'll set it aside for a different use, but I can't really decide at this moment. Next, let's look at two examples of fibers that are not teased open enough for washing. This is Harmony's fleece. She is a Shetland ewe. Very nice long staple length here, and hence because of that long length, it tends to mat up. You would not want to wash it as is. Make sure to tease open those locks. You can see it's kind of clumpy. This is sheared right off the animal in a raw state. As I move down, you can see we're getting to the belly wool. It's much shorter, but it is still matted up and needs to be teased open. Next we have Olympia, who is a Shetland ewe. As I'm working on a new section of Olympia's fleece, I just want to show you this area here, where I can tell that this is the back thigh of the animal. It's usually longer in length. So this area right here is the back leg, outer thigh. Next, an example of a properly teased open fiber. Here's an example of a Shetland wether fleece from a wether named Milo. And this is an example of how the fiber should be teased open prior to washing. What's interesting about Shetlands as lambs is their colors often change. So it's a good idea to wait on registering them until you've given them some time to see what their final fleece color is going to be. This one was born black, and then it kind of changed to a silvery gray, and now he's almost turning into a cream colored. So this lamb's fleece is really quite interesting and colorful. It will be fun to see what it cards up to. But as you can see, the longer staple length and kind of matted up areas have been teased open enough here, so that way when I wash this, it will not felt. I just finished the skirting process of this Shetland fleece, and now it's ready to be bagged up so that the next stage will be washing. So I'm going to be using the same bag that I used during the shearing day. Since the fleece is still dirty, I'll just go ahead and put it right back into this bag. We're going to bring it up onto the table. It's always windy out here. So after I wash this fleece, I will place it in a clean bag when it's washed and dried. It's kind of fun to admire your work here as you've just finished cleaning this all up. You can see how pretty that looks. Okay. And there you have it. We're just gonna loosely cinch that up, and now this can get set aside, and when I have a day to do some washing, we will go ahead and wash this fleece. This is a really large piece of Olympia, a Shetland ewe. Oh wow, there's a really large bumblebee over there. That is really large. Wow. I don't know if I've seen one that big. That's crazy. Okay, Mr. Bee. Don't really want you hanging out in my fleece. He's gonna make a little nest in there. Oh, okay. Now we can carry on. Here is a finished section that I finished skirting of Harmony's here. And it looks really nice with all that vegetable matter picked out. The cats love it, and you can hear my sheep in the background. But yeah, I am so excited about this one with Harmony. It's a really beautiful fleece, and I can't wait to wash it.